As he's leaving for home at the end of his first week at work in a prestigious newspaper, Ken, a young reporter just out of college, passes an office with an open door. He recognizes Cameron Haggerty, one of the senior journalists he had briefly met during induction. The seasoned veteran has some documents spread out on the table and looks pretty absorbed. Ken leans in and apologizes for interrupting, but mentions that he's just received an assignment and he'd be grateful for just a few words of advice from the distinguished journalist. As luck would have it, Cameron happens to be in a mood to give counsel to a younger version of himself.
It's a tough pill to swallow, isn't it? Being told to put your byline on something that doesn't sit right with you? I see you wrestling with it the way I did once.
You mean compromising? Bending to editorial pressure? I didn't think someone like you ever had to deal with that.
Oh, don't let the reputation fool you. I was where you are now. Idealistic, eager to chase truth, thinking the truth always wins. But then you find out the real battle isn't always with the facts. Sometimes it's with your own newsroom.
What happened?
There was a story. Big, sensational, everything editors dream about. It involved diplomats falling ill abroad, strange symptoms, mysterious causes. The idea that some foreign adversary, Russia, Cuba, China, was behind it became the official line. The news desk was practically salivating over it.
Havana Syndrome?
That's the one. The headlines practically wrote themselves. Hostile foreign powers targeting US diplomats. The narrative was too perfect to resist. Only, as I started digging, something didn't add up. The evidence wasn't there. At least, not enough to justify the certainty with which we were pointing fingers. I had doubts.
Did you try to push back?
I tried, but it became clear I wasn't supposed to dig too deeply. I wasn't supposed to entertain other explanations. Instead, I was encouraged, no, expected, to help the audience understand that only an enemy would be capable of such a thing. We had to frame the story, as they put it. They didn't outright tell me to ignore facts, but there was an implicit understanding. Stick to the narrative, or risk being sidelined.
That sounds manipulative.
Manipulative? Perhaps. Or maybe just the system working as intended. The truth is, newsrooms are driven by stories that align with a worldview they think their readers already hold. And when that worldview matches a political agenda, one that feels noble or patriotic, questioning it feels almost like heresy.
Did you ever confront them?
I thought about it. I wanted to push back harder, publish what I really believed. But the consequences were clear. If I bucked the system too hard, I'd lose my platform altogether. And back then, I told myself it was better to stay in the game than to become irrelevant.
So you went along with it?
I did, and I regret it. I regret letting my doubts take a backseat to the editorial line. I regret feeding the public a story I knew wasn't fully baked. But most of all, I regret what it did to me. It made me question my own integrity. Every byline became a reminder of what I wasn't saying.
Do you think the public ever knew?
Some did. A few independent voices called out the inconsistencies, but they were dismissed as cranks or conspiracy theorists. Meanwhile, we, myself included, kept reinforcing the idea that the story was too important to doubt. And the thing is, people want stories like that. They want to believe there's a villain, a clear antagonist who embodies all their fears. It's easier than confronting the ambiguity.
So what do we do?
That's the question, isn't it? Maybe the real source of evil isn't some foreign adversary. Maybe it's our own need to craft stories that appeal to emotions and reinforce what we've been told is a noble cause. We tell ourselves we're serving the greater good, but are we just serving our own biases? Or maybe even the interest of parties we don't even know because we've never met them, or even been allowed to meet them? That's what haunts me now.
Do you think it's too late to change that?
Not for you. You're asking the right questions. Just don't let the pressure silence them. It's easy to follow the script. Rest assured that if you deviate even slightly, someone will be there to remind you, like a prompter in a theater. But the real work is in questioning why the script exists in the first place. You call yourself a reporter, right?
That's the title I have.
Well then, report. Write what you've seen, heard, and surmised. If you were hired to be a stenographer, that would appear in your contract. It's a different job profile. But sometimes your bosses can get confused about which one it is.
I'll bear that in mind.
While bearing that in mind, don't forget that the main job is to bear the facts you come in contact with. It won't be easy, and once you acquire a bad habit, no one will let you break it. Believe me, you may be digging a hole few have ever managed to crawl out of.
Join the conversation at Fair Observer and subscribe to our YouTube channel.